Streaming now, this is the Wood TV Live Desk.
And good morning, everyone. Phil Penarski here with the Wood TV Live Desk. Hope you're having a great start to your Tuesday. News 8 digital reporter Matt Jaworowski is back on the live desk, and we're going to be talking about his latest Sunday story, all about the Michigan Gold Rush. Yes, there was a Michigan Gold Rush, and Matt, that kind of, dives into your story a little bit more. I highly encourage everybody to go check it out. If you haven't already, it's up on our website, woodtv.com. But the story in particular details the Michigan Gold Rush, which I know a lot of people probably don't know about. They also probably don't even know really about the mining history here in the state, and you also tackled that in the story as well.
Yeah, so it really ties to Michigan's mining history, which is primarily in the Upper Peninsula. But some people may not be aware that there is, obviously we have a lot of copper, we have a lot of these other metals or iron that, things that we'd mined for decades and decades. But they had found gold too, and you can still go find it today.
Right, yeah, no, and again, it does go more in depth in the story over on our website right now. But one thing that I did want to touch on, because it is a sort of a focal point of the story, is a man. I want to make sure we got it right. His name is Douglas Houghton, I believe.
Douglas Houghton, yeah.
Houghton, yes, yeah, no, he's a huge player in this story. Can you just tell us a little bit more about who he is exactly and why he is such a focal point of the sort of Michigan mining history?
Sure. So, just to reiterate, when people think gold rush, they think of the California gold rush, where hundreds of thousands of people moved out west to try to find their fortune. Michigan had a lot of people flood to the UP. This actually predates the California gold rush, but it's not necessarily specifically for gold. When Douglas Houghton became the state's first state geologist back in 1837 when the state was formed, that was one of his primary duties, is to map the newly acquired Upper Peninsula, which they had just received from Ohio, as kind of the prize for deciding the Toledo War. So Houghton's job was to go up and, analyze this land, analyze this property. What can we use this for? And with his geology background, he was able to find the evidence that, there's a lot of precious metals up here. There's a lot of copper and iron, and just like the gold rush, that drove a lot of people up to the UP to stake their claim and try to make their money from the land.
Right now, and as they were trying to discover where these precious materials were, obviously gold being one of the big ones there, gold and silver, they fell across a couple of mines. One in particular, the Ropes mine, I know in your story, really seemed to see a lot of success in that area, and even making a small fortune to some of those people that were in charge of it. So
obviously iron and copper were the two big exports out of the UP as far as mining is concerned. But there was actually one commercial gold mine, which you mentioned is the Ropes mine. It's been opened off and on several times. Julius Ropes was the person who first really kind of found it and staked that claim in 1881 and opened a mine. It was really the only viable commercial mine to open, specifically to pull out gold and then also silver. And it's been opened and reopened through the years. He eventually closed the mine, I believe it was 1897, just because he fell on some financial hard times and was forced to give it up. But that land is eventually sold and even operated up until the 1990s, when it was finally shut down for good after one of the main lines collapsed in the mine, and so it wasn't really safe anymore. But even still, I talked to an archivist at Michigan Tech who knows a lot about the mining history up there, who said, it all depends on the value of gold, and we could reach a threshold where the value of gold would be worth a company trying to acquire that land and reopening that mine and seeing if we can use some new techniques to pull more metal out of the land.
Right, absolutely. And one thing about this story, and I'm sure maybe other people that have already checked it out kind of felt the same way, it kind of sparked that desire to maybe go out and find some gold, maybe start digging. But there are, we're not able to go to these mines anymore. We don't have the clearance, the ability to do any sort of thing like that. But there are ways for people to actually go out and possibly find pieces of gold right now just by walking across West Michigan, being in certain areas. And you included that in the story, and I know that was one of my favorite parts about it. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit more for everybody watching?
Right. So there are hobbyists out there that will go gold panning, and you can do that on public property. I know that the state of Michigan and the DNR kind of spell out some of the basic rules to follow, but you can pan on public land as long as the state also owns the mineral rights to that land. So the state has a map dedicated to all these specific spots where people are welcome to go and pan. They do have rules as far as you can't use any motorized equipment, and sluice boxes can only be a certain size. And then there's also a limit to how much gold you can pull out in any calendar year. They use all these really, and this was interesting to me, is learning some of these unique tools, and then also measurements. Apparently a half troy ounce is a thing. I didn't know that. But basically it comes out to about, you can take out about $600 worth of gold in any calendar year. So there's still a lot of gold to be out there. In the story we mentioned some of the not necessarily hot spots, but a lot of places where people can go and have found gold. And then if you dig through the story, lots of really interesting stuff in there as far as how the gold came there, whether there's more gold, and then there's a story including Douglas Houghton of his alleged long lost gold find. There's the legend up in the UP is that when Houghton died, when his boat capsized, he on that trip had actually found a major gold deposit, but was never able to tell anyone where it was. So, whether it's true or not is still up in the air, but there are a lot of people up there that are anxious to believe it.
Yes, no, absolutely. And of course, you detail it all really well in your story that can be found right now over on our website, woodtv.com. And I highly encourage anybody that hasn't had the chance to check it out to do so. You can learn a lot more about the mining history of Michigan, who Douglas Houghton was, and then, of course, where you can even possibly find some gold of your own in the state. Matt, thank you so much for stopping by on the live desk once again. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I want to thank everybody else for tuning in to this latest edition of the Wood TV Live Desk. I'm Phil Penarski, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.